I need some advice and maybe just a place to vent. My name's David and I've been married to Emily for 6 years. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall I thought we had a solid relationship. We met in college and hit it off instantly. She was the fun, outgoing one, and I was the quiet, reliable guy. Opposites attract, right? Lately, though, things have been off. Emily's always had a bit of a wild side, but over the past few months, she's been acting strange. She's been going out more, staying late at work, and being secretive about her phone. I tried to brush it off as her needing some space or dealing with stress, but deep down, something didn't feel right. Little did I know how right my gut feeling was. It started with our vacation to Miami a couple of months ago. Emily had insisted we take this trip, saying we needed some time to reconnect. I agreed because it sounded like a good idea. We stayed at this beautiful resort, and for the first few days, everything seemed perfect. We lounged on the beach, drank cocktails, and had a few romantic dinners. But on the third night, things took a turn. Emily wanted to go to this beachside bar we had passed earlier in the day. I was tired and suggested we stay in, but she insisted, saying she was in the mood for some fun. I didn't want to be a killjoy, so I agreed. At the bar, she was in high spirits, chatting with the bartender, a guy named Jake. He was charming, I'll give him that, but I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. After that night at the bar, Emily's behavior became more erratic. She would disappear for hours, saying she was exploring the town or doing some shopping. When I asked to join her, she always had an excuse. She needed some alone time, or it was a surprise for me. Her phone was glued to her hand, and she'd get defensive when I asked who she was texting. When we got back home, things didn't improve. Emily's late nights out continued, and she became increasingly distant. We used to share everything, but now she was a closed book. The intimacy we once had seemed to vanish overnight. I started to wonder if I was being paranoid, but the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. Last Friday, I got home earlier than usual. Emily wasn't expecting me until later that evening because I told her I'd be working late. I walked in and her phone was on the kitchen counter buzzing with messages. Normally, I'd respect her privacy, but this time curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at the screen and saw a text from a contact saved as "Jay can't wait to see you tonight, babe," it read. My heart sank. I knew I shouldn't, but I opened the message thread. There were dozens of texts between Emily and Jake, the bartender from Miami. They talked about meeting up, reminisced about their time in Miami, and there were explicit messages that left no doubt about what had been going on. The final blow was a photo of them together, with Emily looking happier than she had in months. I waited for Emily to come home that evening, steeling myself for the conversation I dreaded but knew was inevitable. She walked through the door, greeted me with a casual, "Hey, babe," and started to head to the bedroom. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice barely steady. She turned to look at me, a flicker of something, fear, maybe, crossing her face. "What's up?" she asked, trying to sound nonchalant. I held up her phone. "I saw the messages, Emily. I know about Jake." Her face paled, and for a moment she just stared at me, speechless. Then the lies started. "It's not what you think, David. He's just a friend. Those messages were just jokes." "Jokes?" I snapped. "You expect me to believe that sexting and meeting up in secret are jokes?" "I saw the photo, Emily. I saw everything." She sighed, the defensiveness giving way to anger. "Fine. Yes, I slept with him. It was a mistake, but you've been so boring lately. We never do anything fun, and he made me feel alive again." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and a profound sadness. How could she do this to me, to us? I had devoted 6 years to our marriage, and in a matter of seconds it felt like everything was shattered. "I can't believe this, Emily," I said, my voice shaking. "Was any of it real? Did you ever care about us?" She rolled her eyes, and her tone turned dismissive. "Of course I cared, David, but people change. I need more excitement in my life, and you're just... you." I felt a lump in my throat as the weight of her words settled over me. I always thought we complemented each other, her wild side balanced by my steady nature. But now it seemed like everything I believed about our relationship was a lie. I spent the night on the couch, unable to sleep, my mind replaying every moment of our marriage and wondering where it all went wrong. I felt a mix of rage and sorrow, a burning desire to understand why she did this, and an aching emptiness from the betrayal. The next morning, Emily acted like nothing had happened. She was in the kitchen making coffee, humming a tune. It was surreal. I confronted her again, needing more answers. "Emily, we can't just ignore this. We need to talk about what happens next." She looked at me, exasperated. "I already told you, David, it was a mistake. Can't we just move past it? But how am I supposed to trust you again? And what about Jake? Are you still seeing him?" She hesitated, and I knew immediately that the affair wasn't over. "We stopped talking," she said, too quickly, too defensively. It was another lie, and I could see right through it. A week later, Emily dropped another bombshell on me. She was pregnant. She told me over dinner, her eyes fixed on her plate. "I'm pregnant, David," she said, her voice trembling. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could bring us back together, force us to confront our issues and rebuild our relationship. But then the reality hit me. I had no idea if the baby was mine. I asked the question hanging between us, "Is it mine?" Emily's face twisted in anger. "Of course it is! How dare you even ask that?" But I couldn't ignore the doubt gnawing at me. Given everything that had happened, how could I be sure? I told her we needed to do a paternity test. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. After Emily's outburst, she became even more elusive. She avoided any serious conversations and spent more time out of the house. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still seeing Jake. I needed to know the truth, so I hired a private investigator. A few days later, the PI handed me a folder filled with photos and detailed notes. Emily and Jake had been meeting regularly. They weren't just talking. The photos showed them kissing and leaving his apartment together. It was clear she had no intention of ending the affair. When I confronted her with the evidence, she didn't even bother to deny it. "Fine, David. You caught me. I'm still seeing him. What are you going to do about it?" Her cold, dismissive tone shattered the last vestiges of hope I had for our marriage. I realized then that the woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I could barely function at work, and my friends started to notice my distracted demeanor. I confided in my best friend Mark, who was shocked and angry on my behalf. "You deserve better than this, David," he said, trying to comfort me. "You need to think about your own happiness and well-being." I knew he was right, but the thought of ending my marriage was terrifying. What if the baby was mine? Could I really walk away and leave my child behind? Emily's behavior continued to deteriorate. She started staying out all night and coming home drunk. The final straw was when she came home one night with a hickey on her neck, reeking of alcohol and someone else's cologne. It was clear she had no respect for me or our marriage anymore. With everything coming to a head, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I sat down with Emily and laid out my thoughts. "Emily, I've had enough. We're getting a divorce." Her reaction was a mix of anger and relief. "So, you're just going to walk away after everything?" "Yes," I said firmly. "You've made it clear that you don't want this marriage to work. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me or our vows. And I need to think about my future, not just this toxic situation." Emily tried to argue, but I was resolute. We arranged for a lawyer and started the process. During the divorce proceedings, Emily revealed that Jake was planning to move in with her once the divorce was finalized. It hurt, but it also confirmed that I was making the right decision. The divorce was finalized a few months later. The process was emotionally draining, but I felt a sense of relief once it was over. I took some time off work to regroup and focus on my mental health. It was a tough period, but it gave me a chance to reflect on everything that had happened. I learned a lot from this experience. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, it's incredibly hard to rebuild. I also realized the importance of confronting issues head-on rather than hoping they'll resolve themselves. My biggest lesson was to never settle for less than what I deserve. In retrospect, I would tell anyone in a similar situation to trust their instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore the red flags, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. It's better to face the truth, no matter how painful, than to live in denial. While this chapter was incredibly painful, it's also a step toward a better future. I'm now focused on rebuilding my life and finding happiness again. It's a long road, but I'm ready to walk it. As I began to move on, I realized that healing from such a deep betrayal takes time. I threw myself into activities that I enjoyed and that helped me regain a sense of self. I reconnected with old friends, started exercising regularly, and picked up hobbies I had neglected. The support from friends and family was crucial. They helped me see that I was worthy of love and respect. I also sought counseling to work through my feelings and rebuild my confidence. Talking with a therapist helped me process my emotions and develop strategies for dealing with the aftermath of the divorce. As months passed, I slowly started to feel like myself again. I began to envision a future that didn't revolve around the pain of the past. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the anger and sadness would resurface. But I learned to accept those moments as part of the healing process. Looking back, I see how the cracks in our relationship had been there for a long time, even if I didn't want to acknowledge them. Emily's changing behavior, the growing distance between us, it was all there if I had been willing to see it. The affair didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of underlying issues that had been festering. One of the hardest parts was grappling with the fact that I wasn't enough for Emily, despite my best efforts. I had always thought that love and commitment could overcome anything, but I learned that sometimes love alone isn't enough to fix what's broken. Accepting that Emily's actions were a reflection of her own choices and not my worth was a crucial step in moving forward. It helped me stop blaming myself and start focusing on my own well-being.